Hello and welcome. Our discussion on the postgraduate gap year opportunities for the high school athletes continues. And today I'm really excited to be joined by the Tread Athletic co owner, former professional pitcher, Ben Brewster. Ben, thank you so much for talking with us today. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, Walter, thanks for having me. Excited for the discussion.
You know, when this topic began to take shape over the last 6 to 12 months, I immediately thought of Tread, because as many parents know, both at the professional and the collegiate level, if you're active in any capacity on social media, you see the work that Tread has done within the pitching community, and now more than ever, the road to college athletics, particularly college baseball, become really increasingly difficult. Because of the maturity, but a lot of athletes now are looking at that year or 2 year progression from high school and into college. And I thought Ben would offer some tremendous insight. He's been doing this for quite a while now. Ben, I would love for you to let's start this conversation. The world of high school or travel athletics has always correlated in some way, shape, or form to access to the college baseball fraternity. But now it's become an older game. It's become a very mature game at the collegiate level. Can you talk a little bit about, at Tread, the advantages or the opportunities that you provide for the high school athletes that are kind of trying to elevate their game, both athletically as well as physicality wise, between high school and college?
Yeah, so I think I would start by just kind of comparing this to my own career and where I was, because I was a very late bloomer myself. I threw 70 to 73 as a freshman in high school, which is like laughably slow, especially nowadays with how advanced everyone's gotten. And so I had kind of fought and clawed my way, tried to learn as much as I could. Didn't have a pitching coach through high school, but managed to get to mid 80s. And so I was stuck, trying to figure out what to do. I didn't have any college offers out of high school, and so at the time I didn't know like gap year was an option. I'm not going to sit here and push hard for gap years, but now at least it's an option people are aware of that you can do. So in my mind, that wasn't an option. I had this whole preconception I had to play D1 or like it was all waste. Like if I didn't play D1, my career was over. And so I basically picked a bunch of D1 schools that I thought I could maybe go to and try to walk on and try to make the team. And so that's what I ended up doing at University of Maryland. Luckily, I was able to make the team. Coach Backich at the time saw something in me. He's at Clemson now. Gave me a shot. And then over those next 4 years, I worked my way up, finally got playing time as a senior, finally was an impact guy. I was touching 95 as a lefty, got drafted by the White Sox, and went from there. And so I think in my case, like I didn't really play for the first 3 years. I wasn't a good enough player to really sniff the field. Looking back, I wish I had some sort of alternate plan potentially. I think I would have progressed faster if I'd gone to maybe a smaller school, maybe a mid-major, maybe even considering like a top D3 or top D2 type school. And again, the gap year thing wasn't even really in the conversation as an option. But at least now there are multiple options that you can go to. It's like, okay, I'm throwing 85. I'm trying to get drafted one day. I know I'll need to be, call it 91, 94, throwing strikes with 3 pitches to get drafted. Okay, so if I'm here at 85 and I want to be 91, 94, throwing strikes with 3 pitches, there's a bunch of different ways to do that. You can go to a school where you're going to get playing time early on. You have a really good relationship with the coaching staff. They're great with development. You still get to pitch in inter squads. Maybe they have a great weight training staff. The pitching coach is great at teaching new pitches. Like if you have that type of environment and situation, it can work out. On the other hand, it can also very much not work out. I've seen of all the guys I started college with, I think it was 14 guys in my recruiting class. Maybe 4 or 5 were still there by the time I was a senior. And so they don't get playing time in the first year or second year, and then they transfer out and they finish their career at a small D2 or whatever. And so I think just recognizing there's a lot of different options out there. Again, I think what Tread provides specifically, like in my case, a big thing, I was 6'3", 150 pounds as a freshman in high school. I was still only about 180 pounds when I graduated. So I come into college, I'm still 30, 40, 50 pounds underweight from where I should be. And for me, the struggle was always like, I needed to eat so much food. It was so hard for me to put on weight. It was so hard for me to put on strength. And that was really like a limiting factor in my own career. I'd make all this progress from like September through December. And then like the season would start, you'd start like practicing a ton, like in high school and in college. And in season, it'd be so hard to gain weight. So I'd pretty much just like spend 4 or 5, 6 months of the year trying to make progress. And then I would just maintain all season. And the next off season to make some progress, just try to maintain all season. And so if I had just taken that first year or two, I could have gained 50 pounds in the first year or two, made all that initial progress. And now I'm a completely different player at age 19 or 20 versus like just trying to maintain in season. And so I think there's just a different ways you can approach the problem. One guy that comes to mind that did do a gap year with us this past year and a half, his name's Mason Price. He's a local guy in Charlotte, actually. And kid that primarily played basketball in high school, had a little bit of baseball experience, but he came in, he was a low 80s guy, low 80s, 6'6" lefty, 190, great athlete, great frame, just didn't really know what he was doing mechanically. Pitch design wise, needed some help in the weight room, just like tall, lanky guy, didn't move very well on the mound, but great athlete. A year and a half later, he's been up to 96, he's 220 pounds, he's going to go play at a top D2. And so like that's a crazy example of like what can happen, but it's not necessarily the norm. It's not like everyone's going to go gain 15 miles an hour in a year and a half. But if he had just taken the other route and gone to school, it would have been very difficult to try to make that type of progress when he's having to worry about competing for a spot in fall, when he's having to worry about being ready every other day in season. And so you can really consolidate and make a lot of concentrated progress over that year versus it being more spaced out. So that progress might be spaced out over 2 or 3 years in college versus like you can just make very concentrated progress if you really dedicate yourself for a year. But I think it does depend on the situation and the specifics of a guy's career and what his limiting factors are. Like I wouldn't be the first to say everyone should go do a gap year. Like if your stuff is already good, you already don't struggle with pitchability, like you think you're going to get innings your first year, there might not be a reason to take a gap year. It's just now an additional option that you have at your fingertips to consider along with any recruiting offers that you have, along with, again, evaluating the whole landscape of options that are available.
Well, I think there's two words that in your world I think that play a major factor, and I wholeheartedly agree. As in any other facet or aspect of life, nothing is for everyone. It's basically you're presented with options, and whatever is the best fit for you personally, geographically, academically, athletically, etc. But in your world, persistence, passion, and progression. In other words, without those three words or those three attributes, success probably is not going to come your way. And with regard to when you talk about strength training and you talk about nutrition and you talk about mechanic adjustments, they are not something where you can just flip a switch and just, okay, I want to gain my 20 pounds. I want to throw 5 miles an hour faster. So there is a certain level of passion that has to go with a certain level of persistence, but then you must be patient with regard to your progression. Can you talk about that both as a high school athlete, a college athlete, and obviously in your world as a professional athlete?
I really like that. I haven't heard you mention it that way before, but I would actually add a fourth one that comes to mind, which I would say is precision. Because you can have the persistence, you can have the passion, you can be focused on progression, but if you're focusing on the wrong things or you're putting that effort in the wrong direction, or you don't exactly have a clear like roadmap of where you need to go, like that effort is going to be wasted or at least suboptimal. And that was me through high school for 4 years. Is I had the work ethic, I had the persistence, I had the passion from day one. Like I wanted it more than anybody. And for me, I just didn't know what I didn't know. Like I was just a super enthusiastic 15-year-old kid who was skinny, who was a pretty good athlete, but just didn't know how to move. I didn't know anything. And so I was putting all this effort and time and blood and sweat and tears in the wrong direction. And so I think precision is what's so valuable, and where I wish I could go back and like understand the importance of having a coach or a mentor or somebody who'd been there. Again, it doesn't have to be me, us, whatever. It's just like find somebody who's been where you're trying to go at the next level, who's made a lot of the same mistakes that you are unknowingly making right now. And so for me, I look back and I'm like, okay, from 15 all through high school, all through college, I was able to go from 73 to 95, get drafted, ultimately touch 96, 98 as a lefty. It's like, okay, I could have made most of that progress in 3 or 4 years if I'd been precise with that effort. Instead, it was very imprecise. I was focusing on all these things, but I was making just mistakes left and right. I was getting injured because I didn't know this or that, or my training form, command issues. Like I just didn't know any of this stuff. So precision to me is the important piece. But to touch on, you talked about the persistence, you talked about the progression, you talked about the passion. I don't know if you can train the passion, really. For me, that was always there. Like, if a guy doesn't want it, he doesn't want it, and I've never figured out how to force a guy to want it. If the parent wants it more than the athlete, like, we can't help you. And you can tell that when, like, if somebody
Bingo.
reaches out, gets on a call, and the parent's the one doing all the talking, or the parent's the one who reaches out, and the kid's just in the background, like, doesn't say anything. It's like, more times than not, that doesn't work out great, because the athlete, nobody can lift the fork for you, nobody can lift the weights for you. Like, it ultimately comes down to you have to want it yourself as an athlete, and it's tough if the parent, like, really cares. They can't force the kid to want it. The coach can't force the kid to want it. There's almost nothing you can do there. So I don't know that you can train the passion. I think you can probably reveal some of the passion, or at the very least, like, you can definitely depress some of that passion that a kid might naturally have if you're a really bad coach, or really just demotivating, or really, like, I think a really bad coach can kind of squash some of the passion that would naturally be there. I don't know how you take a kid who's already outside of that situation. I don't know how you inspire a totally different level of work ethic or passion for their craft. I think they have to want to be there. And those are the guys that we choose to work with. The guys who just want to be there. They already have the persistence. They already have the passion. They just need a plan. They just need to know, what direction should I be working in? Give me the sets. Give me the reps. Give me the exercises. Tell me how to grip this pitch. Give me the mental cue to work on just tell me what to do. I'll be able to actually follow it and enact that plan. And so those are the guys we choose to work with. And maybe somebody's figured out how to motivate guys to go from, like, 50th percentile work ethic to, like, 90th, 99%. I haven't figured that out. I'll be the first to admit it, but let me know if you ever do.
If there was a vitamin that could do that, I'm sure a lot of us would like to get that and give it to a lot of young athletes. And one of the things that I hear from parents all the time, and I think you're the perfect person to ask this question. There are certain foundations that an athlete must have in order to not only work with tread, but if you alluded to as a freshman, you were in that lower percentile arm strength, velocity measurement. What are some of the foundational pieces that those high school athletes that are kind of, should I work with tread? What do I need to have to work with tread? Is it athleticism? Is it delivery? What are some of the foundation pieces that student athletes should have before they start to research and reach out to you at Tread?
So we set our cutoff age at freshman year of high school. And
Okay.
The reason we do that isn't that we can't get younger athletes better. It's that the parents end up being very involved. It's hard to know if the athlete really wants it themselves. You're dealing with just a less mature level of athlete. And to your point, like, a lot of them don't have some of the basics. They have no experience ever in the weight room. They've never done a barbell squat. They've never done a dumbbell bench press. They don't even know the first thing about how to lift weights. They don't know the first thing about, they've never done a lot of these kind of foundational things. So generally speaking, like, having had some experience weight training, we still work a lot through the form and form checks on everything, and being able to teach guys the basics of nutrition and tracking their calories and their macronutrients, and how to work on their mobility and head-to-toe assessment. And so it's really about the maturity level of the athlete. It's making sure that they actually want to be there. It's making sure that they don't need somebody over their shoulder monitoring every rep of every day. Right? Remote training doesn't really work if that's the issue. If the issue is compliance, remote training is not a good option. You need to go train in a team setting, go train with a personal trainer, go train with somebody who's watching every single rep, who's ensuring the accountability piece. It's more for the guys who are already accountable. They already have the work ethic. They just need a plan to follow. They need someone to tell them what to do, somebody they can talk to, get on calls weekly, shoot texts to, shoot videos to. They need someone to guide them, a mentor. And it's basically built around what I wish I had had at that point. I had all the intangibles. I just didn't know what to do. And so that's the guy it's perfect for. But I had plenty of teammates in high school. Like, they were lazy. They didn't really care. You give them a program remotely, they wouldn't have followed it. And so, like, if we sense that, it's like, not a good fit. Like, go do something with your local team, local facility. Like, you need to be part of, like, that environment, because you're not gonna have the accountability to actually follow through on this. And we tell parents that too. If the parent's not sure if the kid's gonna follow it, it's like, well, don't waste your money at that point.
Well, you had mentioned this word, and I agree 1,000% with the word precision. And I would love for you to talk, because you're in this realm, in this world, and I sometimes feel that parents and student athletes, they get to a number, whether it's 88 or 90, and suddenly they think the Red Sea is going to part. and Division I baseball and professional baseball is going to open up. Can you talk about the microscopic precision from a pitching perspective? Like, it's not about, how strong you are. It's about being able to throw a baseball from 60 feet 6 inches over a 17 or 23-inch plate with ball width left or right. But can you talk about, it's not just about the velocity. There are so many other parts and foundational pieces to being a pitcher at the collegiate level of all levels as well as professional. Can you talk about how you work with young pitchers and get them to understand mentally about pitch shape and the precision that it takes to get college caliber and obviously professional hitters out?
Yeah, I think realizing that the pinnacle of the pyramid is not velocity, it's actually performance. It's on-field, in-game performance. Within that, there's different ingredients that go into creating that on-field performance. Now, stuff is one of them. Velocity is one component of stuff. It's also pitch movement, pitch shapes. It's also the pitchability piece. That's another main ingredient, pitchability, which is command. It's also the strategy that goes into that. So it's not just having good command of your pitches. It's knowing how to actually sequence everything, how to set up hitters, where to throw your pitches, how best way to assign usage to different pitches in your arsenal, how to construct your arsenal so each pitch plays off itself. And the other third main ingredient would be the availability side, the health, and then also the workload capacity piece of it. So the top pitchers who can actually perform year in, year out, they're available, right? Think of like a Garrett Cole or somebody like that. Like, they're available, they're able to stay healthy, they have good pitchability, so they can throw strikes, and they have an actual game plan when they go out there. So the data side, the analytics to actually tell how do you maximally utilize this arsenal. Oh, your curveball is actually your best pitch. When Kyle Wright started working with us and he was struggling in the minor leagues in AAA, it's like, well, we figured out that his curveball actually grades out as best pitch and he was throwing it 15% of the time. What happens if we tweak that to 35 to 40% of the time? And the next year he won 21 games. And so it's that side of thing is super important. And then obviously the stuff does matter. Like, no one's sitting here saying that velocity doesn't matter, but fastball velocity is just one tiny component of stuff. Like, think of Greg Maddux. People say Greg Maddux, so it's like they make it sound like he had bad stuff. No, Greg Maddux, if you've watched him pitch, like, had electric stuff. He still had elite stuff. His stuff was more based around the movement side of things. It was around the rest of his arsenal, how nasty his changeup was, how nasty all his breaking stuff was. It's not just fastball velocity. So, like, for example, I don't know if anyone watching this has heard of Stuff Plus, but it's a way that there's different algorithms that can basically grade out the nastiness or the nasty factor of pitch. Velocity is like one variable of how Stuff Plus is calculated. And this is what pro teams, college teams, the more advanced ones are now using this. This is how we actually evaluate pitches and arsenals now. It's not just like this guy throws 98, this guy throws 94, the guy throwing 98 has a better fastball. It's not that at all anymore. And so what you'll see is that you'll have a guy who throws 98, but it's like a dead zone 98. It's flat. It doesn't have a ton of movement. This guy throws 92, but it has 20 inches of hop to it. It's deceptive. It's coming off a steep approach angle, and he tunnels it really well with his slider. Okay, that might be a more effective fastball. That might be a more effective arsenal. And so it helps to fill in the gaps and explain why certain pitchers can get away and be super nasty throwing low 90s, and others can get hit really hard throwing 98. And again, you just extrapolate that to college, high school, like the same concepts apply. So it's velocity is one component of it. It definitely helps because it makes everything else better. If you throw 88 and your curveball is going to be 78 and your changeup is going to be 81, but like now if you throw 93, okay, now you might be able to throw an 82-mile-an-hour curveball. Everything starts to get better. Now you might be able to throw a sweeper that's 3 miles an hour, and so the entire arsenal starts to lift up. But I think people get a little bit, we call it stuff blind at Tread, but stuff blind, like you just fall in love with the raw stuff that you see in like a TrackMan bullpen or in a bullpen setting, and it just doesn't always translate to the game. So a big piece, I didn't even mention this, is like the mental training side of it. How do you actually translate what you're doing in the bullpen, in the pitch design side of things, which again, we do a ton of that. Like teaching a guy a brand new pitch, teaching him a seam shift changeup or a seam shift sinker, or teaching him a brand new knuckle curveball. Like at some point you have to train that in the bullpen setting, get on a TrackMan or Rapsodo, just work on the shape. Don't worry about where it's going. But at some point you need to start getting that in the zone, making sure there's a catcher there, stand-in hitter, starting to add pressure, and then starting to be able to teach yourself to bridge that to the game. And so the mental side is a huge piece of that too. You can't just get stuff blind and say this, you fall in love with like the bullpen fastball. You need to actually have that be able to be there when the lights come on. And scouts know this. Like, I think people are becoming more aware of it, because this is how baseball was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And then we start being able to measure and quantify these things, and we start to chase just nastiness in a bullpen. And I think the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way. It's like, no, we need a balance of both things. We can work on stuff at certain points of the offseason. We need to work on pitch design at certain points of the offseason. We need to work on command and actually bridging it to the game at other points in the offseason. And so I think it just depends on the specific guy and what he needs most. And that's what we try to do as much as we can. It's like, we're going to be able to steer and construct that offseason based on what that guy's limiting factors are.
Now, I would love for you to share with families, and we talk about that extra year of maturity, whether it's a gap year between high school and college, or maybe it's your sophomore year in high school and you're looking to kind of elevate and get into the opportunity zone, I call it, with regard to college recruiting. How does someone reach out to Tread to begin to work remotely? What is the contact method? Is it email? Is it DM via social media? Kind of share with folks that have an interest in Tread how to reach out to you, how to reach out with regard to video. What would you like the initial contact to be?
Yeah, so they can reach out through our website. There's a contact form on the website, the contact page. That's the best way. But again, I'm not here to push people to necessarily reach out to Tread. It's more so like, be able to take a zoomed out big picture perspective of your own career. And let's say you're 18 years old and you want to get drafted at age 22. Okay, so from here to there, why am I not currently a draft prospect? Okay, I'm throwing 87 to 88. Okay, I only have one off-speed pitch. Okay, my command is a 40 grade and needs to be a 60 grade. Like, take an honest look at where you are right now, where you want to go. I call it the Olympian mentality, but it's like, zoom out, look at your training in like a 2 to 4 year block. Don't look at it in like, what do I need to do like this month? Take a big picture look. What's holding me back from getting from point A to point B? Now you can start to be a little bit more rational about what you want to do. Okay, cool. I need to gain velocity. I need to probably put on 30 pounds. I need to probably learn another pitch, or I don't have a changeup. Okay, so you start to put down, like, these are all the things that are holding me back from being a guy who could potentially get drafted, or from being the guy who could potentially be a Friday night starter at LSU, or whatever the goal is. And now it's like, let's put together a rational plan to actually get there. And maybe what you're doing right now is working. Keep doing what you're doing. Maybe the coaching staff that's already recruited you, or where you have an offer to go, maybe they already have a very clear laid out plan to get you there. That's fine. Maybe your issue is pitchability and just getting comfortable in game situations. And so playing in inter squads all fall and just getting game reps, like, maybe that's actually what certain guys need. And certain guys do need that. Certain guys should be playing summer ball, for example, should be playing fall ball, and should just be getting a ton of game reps and getting comfortable, like, just on a dirt mound pitching to a hitter. Certain guys need that. Other guys, like, you're 6'5", 140 pounds, dude. Like, you need to take a step back, gain 60 pounds. You'll gain 10 miles an hour during that time, adjust the mechanics, get a little bit more efficient with how you move, learn a new pitch shape. Now you can start to blend this back to the game and and again, that might be the first year of that 4-year plan that you lay out. The first year is, I'm going to put on the weight. I'm going to build the big league body that I don't have right now. I'm going to learn a basic pitch shape. Year 2 is blending this all, start to get really comfortable in games. Boom, year 3 and 4 performance. Year 3 and 4, like, I'm going to be the Saturday guy, the Sunday guy, the Friday guy. Like, that's when it all comes together. So just looking at it in terms of a big picture perspective of how do I get from point A to point B, not necessarily like in these like such short compressed chunks of time.
Well, I think I call that the Dead Poet Society viewpoint, where Robin Williams, for those of you that may not have seen it, when Ben alludes to widening the lens, I always say all you have to do is take it from a different viewpoint. Instead of looking at it, from this perspective, get up on top and look down and kind of see what it is you're trying to accomplish over the long term, as opposed to the daily, weekly, monthly kind of perspective. Oftentimes that youth sports tries to kind of push parents into that kind of that funnel. And I really agree with Ben here, is when you widen the lens and you kind of view it from a different angle or a different perspective, I think you'll find that all of these tiny, slow measurables begin to add up over a period of time. And if you look at it from freshman year of high school to freshman year of college and kind of see the direction you're heading, I think it's important. And I always try to point parents, if it's good enough for guys like a Mitch Keller, and it's not just because we're talking to Ben at Tread, but always remember, the best of the best go and work with certain organizations or groups or people specifically, as in Ben's case, because there's success, but they do it in a capacity, they do it the right way for the right reasons. So when it comes to that post-grad year, that gap year, that time period between your freshman year in high school and maybe that freshman year in college, give yourself that runway of instruction and learning, and obviously reach out to Tread with regard to anything pitching. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I found this to be tremendously informative. We kind of have some synergy there with regard to viewpoint, and I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Absolutely, Walter. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.